Tales of the Caballos by William H. White. Part 1 is about the early history. Chapter 1, the Caballo Mountains. Chapter 2, the Spaniards. Chapter 3, Padre Larue. Chapter 4, Pedro Narvaez. Part 1, Chapter 1, the Caballo Mountains. The Caballo Mountains stretch from the north to the south along the Rio Grande River for roughly 23 miles, beginning at Elephant Butte Lake Dam and ending somewhere close to Garfield, New Mexico, to the south. The western side of these mountains feature vertical limestone cliffs setting atop a black band of Precambrian rock. What was once the Rio Grande River is now a lake called, appropriately, the Caballo Reservoir, a shallow stretch of water about 15 miles long. To the east, there are more trees and brush while the mountains gently rise to match the rim of the mountains. The tallest point is around 8,000 feet. When viewing the mountain from either the north or the south, it takes on the appearance of an equilateral triangle. My first impression of this mountain was nothing special. I was to learn later just how wrong first impressions can be. The Caballo Mountains were mined by the Aztecs for gold and used as a burial site for their people. The Aztecs, not the first ones to visit the mountain, but for the sake not being too controversial in this book, I am beginning this history with the Aztecs. We know the Aztecs were here because they left evidence on the Caballo Mountains, as well as other mountain ranges in the surrounding area. Next was the conquering Spaniards in search of the 7 cities of Cibola, also known as the 7 cities of gold. The Spaniards had gained access to the mountain and both mined and stored gold in and around the mountain. Groups of Spaniards remained at the mountain continuously until the late 1680 Pueblo Revolt. Their signs are still visible to those who wander there, although most have been either destroyed or hidden by the treasure hunters of the last century. Next came the Jesuits, who eventually established 9 missions on the Caballo Mountains. They were there until the 1680 Pueblo Revolt, and the story is best told in the Padre Larue story. Finally, the Apache Indians played a major role in shaping the history of the Caballo Mountains. To the east of this mountain stretched a level plain that stretched for perhaps 100 miles, with the Spanish road in the center called the Camino Real. This road can be seen to this day by air. It was the main traveling route taken by the Spaniards going to and from Santa Fe and Mexico City. The Spanish gave this route a name, Jornada del Muerto, a name that this plain is still known by to this day. It translates to Journey of the Dead Man, and for a good reason. The Spaniards could carry only 3 days of water for themselves and their animals. Sometimes the water holes were dry and they had to push on to the next location in hopes that water would be found there. Then there was flash floods that would turn the roads into impassable quagmires. And finally the Apache Indians, who waged a 450-year war against the intruders from Europe. This was the chosen battleground for the Apache. This was not the ancestral tribal home of these Indians, so the need to defend the land was not there. The Apaches could attack at a time and place of their own choosing and quickly leave the Jornada del Muerto. The Spanish responded in kind to the ferocity of the Apache. There was a bounty placed on the head of any Apache, and it was paid unhesitantly by the Spaniards and later the Mexican government as well. The Apache was given no quarter and none were asked for. During this period, the Apache were more than a match for their adversary. It wasn't until the coming of the American army that spelled doom for this mighty warrior race. They were met with an organized and relentless enemy that drove the Apache into hiding and eventually destroyed their independence. Of these three main groups of people, the Spanish were the first to mine and refine gold at the Caballo Mountains. It could be said that most, but not all, of the treasure left by this group is generally found at the lower elevations. This same basic rule could apply to the second group, the Jesuits. The Apache, on the other hand, generally stored their booty on the higher elevations of the Caballos. They looked for caves and natural outcroppings that were more common in the limestone. The Apache did not want gold, and they felt it was wrong for the Spanish to mine it. So when some gold was captured, it was always given back to the earth. The Apache never intended to come back and retrieve the gold stored by them on the mountain. This is the Caballo Mountains today. It is loaded with treasure sites from end to end, top to bottom. Those who have come before and been successful on this mountain have just scratched the surface. It is out there to this day, waiting for the right person to come along and claim it.